Welcome to In Business. This is the programme first broadcast on the 17th of January 2008. You can now also subscribe to our sister programme, Global Business, presented by Peter Day, on air 52 weeks a year. Listen out for more details after the programme. This week, Peter Day examines the internet phenomenon known as social networking. Is it a threat to traditional business or a great big opportunity?
As the internet evolves, how it's used keeps changing. Social networks are a good example. Tearaway sites such as Facebook, offering a free way to talk to the whole world about your personality, your likes, your dislikes, your enthusiasms. And then YouTube, enabling anyone to share favourite video clips with the whole world. These start-up companies have attracted millions of devotees who are using them to build out networks of contacts, acquaintances and friends across the globe. You can link up to share pictures, music and tastes, and you can pool ideas, make valuable business contacts and further your career. You can also waste hours keeping your internet buddies up to speed with trivial events in your life in real time when you ought to be getting on with your work. You can do things at work on the internet that can bruise and batter your company or organisation, even bring it to its knees. The new everybody joins in connectivity of the internet can be frightening to employers, even if it's just another part of life to the youthful employees. This programme sets out to dig beneath the pride and the prejudice and find out what organisations ought to be doing about social networking. Let's start with a quick briefing on the problematic potential of all this from the fast-talking Kara Swisher. She's a veteran Wall Street Journal writer who now runs the website and annual conference called All Things Digital.
It's almost like a fence in an old village, everybody talking. And so that's why they're growing, is because people have been dying for a place to express themselves on the internet. Say you like music, you can put a music widget. If you like photos, you can have a photo widget. There's one widget called Pop Your Zit if you want that on there. There's all kinds of widgets. It's about you personalizing your web experience.
This is a radically different 21st century experience of the world, isn't it?
Right, absolutely. I mean, young people are very adept at wanting to communicate in the way they want to communicate. And what's really exciting, especially in Facebook, is this news feed where you find out what your friends are doing without any effort. That's a really powerful idea. It's an incredibly powerful idea, bigger than people think. The question is, how do these things evolve into really powerful medium for business? And that's the problem right now. These things
you haven't got an answer to that
yet. No,
yet.
They're kind of silly. They're kind of stupid and silly. And a lot of the things that you do on them are stupid and silly.
Virtual custard pies.
Well, yeah, food fight. There's one called Super Poke or Super Slap, where you just slap someone, and that's the entire encounter. I created a group on Facebook that I got 3,000 people in 2 days to sign up for our All Things D site. 3,000 people. If you saw this list, it was the top people in technology. I have 3,000 people on this Facebook group, and the most I can do is slap them, poke them, or tickle them. And I don't want to tickle, I don't want to tickle Bill Gates. I'm really not interested in it. So what could I do with this group digitally? What widget could I impose upon them that would be really interesting? So that's the question, is who's going to create these new kinds of software or communications mechanisms that are useful in these social networks?
A problem for companies, says Kara Swisher, but no problem for the youthful users who thrive on social networking. One man who's encountered the dilemma is Peter Cunningham, UK and Ireland director of the business networking site Viadeo. It says it's got 1.8 million members using its site and other networks all the time.
In our team in the UK, they're very avid Facebook users. We keep an eye on them because obviously it reduces productivity, but I get to see how the younger generation taps into Facebook.
You say obviously it reduces productivity. Is that a mathematical, numerical calculation you've done, or is it just the way you feel about it? Because it could make people feel interested enough to go back to their work refreshed and strengthened so they get it done in half the time, for example.
Possibly. I think there's only so many hours in a working day, and if you find someone spending a lot of time on a distraction, the idea is perhaps they're not spending that time working. So I do see there are some social benefits that people feel that they're keeping in touch with their social life and they feel better about their work, which may actually be positive. And of course, even social networks, there may be business uses. They can use them for recruitment and finding information about contacts.
Peter Cunningham at Viadeo, and his networking company is naturally keen on people using professional networking as much as possible. But he's a convert. What's it like for more conventional businesses who grew up in the years before Web 2.0? Stephen Millard is Vice President of Marketing at the Internet security specialist ClearSwift. It's a company which has been examining how people use the web in business circumstances.
We found from the research that around about 65% of organisations just block Web 2.0 access.
It's a generation thing, really, isn't it? The older people who run and manage businesses don't understand what's going on with their younger staff, to whom something like Facebook is as natural as breathing.
There is a significant social demographic change. We looked at employees' attitudes to use of Web 2.0 in the workplace. What we found was a very clear distinction between the sub-30s and the 30s and above. The sub-30s, 50%, expect to walk in and use these types of technologies to interact with their friends, but actually they expect to use them to interact with their business colleagues. And your customers of that same age group also expect to be communicated with in the same way. I think one of the challenges we have is that many organisations, the business policy that pertains to the use of these types of sites in the workplace is driven and dictated in many instances by people who really don't understand the implications, the benefits, and are solely concerned on the downside. They're not taking advantage and therefore potentially damaging their businesses.
Stephen Millard of ClearSwift. One obvious way to use the power of networking is to create a corporate spirit among new recruits. Someone who's using social networking to get new starters together is Penny Davis, Head of Human Resources at the phone company T-Mobile.
In my team, I'm responsible for recruitment. We've used Facebook. We've used it as a tool to engage graduates after we've offered them a job, to get them to know each other and to network before they actually start with us.
What was the need you felt you were answering with it?
What we wanted to do was to get our future grads involved in the organisation before they actually joined. And so when they joined, they were up to speed, they felt more comfortable, they knew people. They organised themselves, so they organised house sharing, they organised social activities, all those sorts of things.
So you took some of the uncertainty out of the first job?
And the first day in the first job, absolutely, yes. And we also encouraged managers to join in as well, so they could ask them questions and be part of the network.
Yes, that's pretty straightforward and pretty useful. T-Mobile using social networking to make life easier for new recruits. And recruitment itself is another powerful use of the new networks. Dan Black is in charge of American campus recruiting for the huge business advisory firm Ernst & Young, and he told me about it on the phone from New York.
Facebook presented to us an opportunity to broadly get our message out. So that's number one. The second piece is that, yes, more than any time in the past, this generation, the millennials, Gen Y, presents a very different skill set, a very different background than what is existing in the workplace. They have a love for technology. They are very, very comfortable in diverse environments. They want constant feedback. They want to know that they're making an impact. And one of the things that struck us is that they feed off of their peers, more so than any of our generations. So important decisions, whereas I might have asked a mentor, a parent, a faculty member, these students also are turning to each other and saying, hey, what do you know about this company? You're my age, you're in my situation. What do you think? And so Facebook provides that forum through which they can find out about companies from a trusted source, each other. And so this is a very outward and specific way for us, Ernst & Young, to give an example of how we as a firm are changing to make sure that they will feel comfortable working in our environment. Once you join the firm, we do podcasts for a lot of our training. We have an instant messaging system that is specific just internally to the company, and this generation loves instant messaging. And so we are trying to highlight in an external way what the firm has been doing internally, which is really preparing for this generation to come and be a significant portion of our workforce. In fact, in 2.5 years from now, more than 50% of our entire U.S. employee population will be Generation Y.
Generation Y, the people coming of age in the 21st century, using technology and the internet in quite different ways from the people who preceded them. But here's Ernst & Young, full of accountants and other business professionals, deciding to reach out to embrace young potential recruits. Was it a difficult decision for a buttoned-up business to take?
It was not a slam dunk, I have to tell you. Being in a more conservative industry in professional services, there's a desire to have control of your message. So selling the idea of the social network in which the content is largely driven by folks that are not inside the firm, by college students, that you don't have the control to censor and get your own message out from inside the firm, it seemed risky. There were going to be posts that we weren't crazy about. And we've had a number of posts. Hey, don't go to Ernst & Young, go to X firm because they're better. And that's posted right on our page. Or there's a lot of hours that they work at EY. Is that true? And we made a conscious decision to say, we are going to leave those posts up there. And the students have now, a year and a half later, really come to recognize that this is a true site. This is not being censored by the firm in any way. This is a place where you can go and get, quote-unquote, real information. It's a scary prospect, but the advantage is that you do get the positive brand. And frankly, a lot of our posts are coming directly from students or new staff, as opposed to a recruiter or a corporate manager here at the firm trying their best to give their message on Facebook.
Dan Black, Manager of Campus Recruiting for Ernst & Young America. Back to Stephen Millard at ClearSwift in London for more on how companies hitherto obsessed with controlling the message should approach the social network phenomenon.
We need to take responsibility for actually communicating clearly, concisely, honestly, if you like, and I think we'll do a lot better out of it than trying to dress something up and make it out something it isn't.
Companies might gain a bit of plausibility simply by the to and fro of things they don't necessarily want said about them or would never have allowed out of the gate in the old days.
I think there's a lot to be said for that, and I'm just thinking about a specific example and whether I want to share it. But if you go onto Wikipedia and you put in the name of my company, you'll see an entry that's written quite a while ago, and it very much reads like a sales pitch. And somebody's put a quote on there to say, this looks like a sales pitch. It's on my to-do list to go in and rewrite it so it doesn't look like a sales pitch that is slightly more warts and all.
That official message from Stephen Millard of ClearSwift. Now let's get a change of focus from someone whose job it is to work out the new corporate possibilities and opportunities that social networking creates. He's Lars Plouman, a Dane now working for the London consultancy Headshift.
Most topics you can care to dream of are already present on Facebook in more than one flavor. So you may have the official group for a particular product, and then you'll have 20 unofficial groups.
Now, there have been a lot of sites that have been anti-sites, haven't there? So, oh my goodness, that's a corporate problem, isn't it, when I get a site that's set up against me?
Well, it also means that you are getting some very valuable feedback as a corporate. So instead of lots of people just stopping buying your service or your product, you're actually learning why.
Their gripes, their complaints, their libels about me may be useful to me.
I think so. You can go on to a Facebook group, you can monitor what's being mentioned about you in blogs, and instead of seeing, say, sales decline, you're actually finding out what is expected of your product.
These anyone can say something comments on the World Wide Web are naturally disturbing for organisations which until now have tried hard to control very carefully the things that are said about them in public. But for Lars Plouman there may be other changes too. The world of advertising may be in for a complete reassessment.
Every single publisher of a blog is a publisher of a website that can carry advertising and recommendation. I think we're going to see the same model applied to social networking, that you are the publisher of your profile, and if you've got a wide social network, if you are an early adopter of technologies, then you are a valuable node in the social network to a lot of other people that have messages to get out, whether those messages be advertising or something else.
Yeah, suddenly me as a user, a consumer, becomes a very important data thing that I may be able to charge for in some way.
You've always been a very important data point, and you've always been able to get a benefit from loyalty mechanisms where the deal is that the company operating the loyalty scheme can use your consumption data. The same way that if you refer a friend to a service that you subscribe to, we might see that make its way into social networks in a much more powerful way. And so it doesn't become just about your own consumption. It becomes about your potential as a consumer advertiser. And we might even arrive at a type of declarative commerce where you add social networking on top of the search advertising engine that Google has, and you have a very, very powerful advertising network where advertising only happens when permission is given. You post what you're interested in, and you let advertisers bid for your money and for your attention. You could declare in your profile on a social network that you're planning a trip to Morocco, with the intent of getting information back about what's available with respect to trips to Morocco. That could be where the world is going.
After the tearaway success of the pure social network sites, new businesses are now being built out of professional networking. One of them is LinkedIn. Its founder, Reid Hoffman, was a founder director of the internet payment system PayPal. While he was there, he saw the need for a site where business people could find one another and enhance their businesses and their careers.
I'd thought about some of the problems that we'd tried to face in PayPal. For example, finding a Flash designer very fast in order to put up a website within a day or two. And we realized the net would be a really good solution for this.
The internet would be a good solution, and then it was fairly easy, was it? It was fairly straightforward what you had to do.
Right. We hope to enable users to use this ecosystem for ways that make their lives better. For example, we were surprised when we started doing research on what people were using the network for and found so many hedge funds actually using it to find experts. And we were like, oh, that's interesting. Oh, that makes sense, of course. But we just hadn't thought of it when we were building it.
Anything else in a completely different field?
Let's see. So it's also a really good way of doing reference checking. So I hired a new CEO into the company in February, and I actually checked 23 off-balance references.
Off-balance?
Not references that you're given, references that you find people through your network of other people who have worked with this person. Say I know Fred, who knows Bob, who's then worked with Dan being the CEO. I ask Fred to introduce me to Bob. I say, please ask Bob to be very straight with me because I'm very interested to know what kind of colleague and so forth Dan is. I haven't seen much use of LinkedIn for this yet, but one of the things I predict is not only will it be for employee hiring, but also for hiring like lawyers or accountants. It's like people who've worked with a lawyer before and say, well, is this a good person to hire?
How does this evolve now? Do you just get bigger and bigger and take over the world, or do you have a lot of rivals coming in and taking specific little specialisms and making it a richer experience for the financial specialist or the engineer?
Well, so I tend to believe, and obviously LinkedIn reflects this belief, that actually one big general network is what you really need in order to get that value. So, for example, take the hedge fund case, which is you have a wide variety of diversity of experts that you may want to talk to. You might want to talk to a person who has been doing oil drilling, off Chile because you're curious about whether or not the oil will continue or not, or you're curious about changes in agricultural policy in China. So this gives you a very broad range, and it's not just like other hedge fund people. You actually want to get to other professionals. So similarly, for example, if say you did a lawyer network, well, you don't want to just have lawyers in it. You actually want to have experts. You want to have clients who could refer you and talk about you and all the rest of that. And I think the universe where you do your job effectively as an individual by sitting isolated in an office and not actually participating in the business world at large, where you're finding out which are the current ideas and how people are solving problems and everything else, will mean that you're less effective, and that will ultimately be bad for the company.
Reid Hoffman's LinkedIn idea is going to be hard fought over. Peter Cunningham is part of Viadeo, a company trying to do something similar for business professionals in Europe.
We see ourselves as a lifetime career management portal. So whether you are seeking key business information, looking to recruit someone, maybe you're trying to find a good contact, could be a new client, a new supplier. For example, if you have a business meeting, you can check up on the profile of the person you're going to meet in half an hour. For example, we had members who have found a distributor in another country through our network. It's not a distraction. It's something you should be using as a business tool.
What about recruitment? The traditional ways of recruitment are expensive and difficult, and now suddenly along comes the network that you run, and recruitment is being changed radically by networking, isn't it?
I agree with you that networks pose a unique challenge to recruitment. Getting close to half our revenue comes from selling services to recruiters or from head of in-house recruitment. What we do is, according to permissions given by our members, we allow them to profile the network and contact people that would meet the profiles they're looking for. And they can find information about people, more information you'd find on a CV, because you're creating a profile which is links to your blogs, information about your interests, for example. Our biggest clients are Michael Page, Hayes, Korn Ferry, a lot of headhunters, because we're essentially another tool for them. Now, they still have to meet people, they still have to interview them, they still have to verify the information. So actually, some small companies use our network to avoid paying recruitment fees, but we essentially are a tool for recruiters.
But you have a database which is far bigger, one presumes, than most of the recruiters themselves.
Bigger and also more up to date. So that's a very important tool, very important asset for a recruiter.
So you're modifying the recruitment business rather than destroying it.
We've no intention of destroying the recruitment business. The recruiters are our friends.
Peter Cunningham at Viadeo. New networks of people are popping up all over the internet, but there is still something very powerful about pioneers such as Facebook. It's the privately owned social site started in 2004 at Harvard University that now has something like 60 million users worldwide with their own walking, talking CV on the web. At the Headshift consultancy in London, company clients are asking Lars Plowman how to imitate it within their own businesses.
One question we get asked from time to time is, how do we build a Facebook internally? Which is a fantastic testament to how popular and well-known Facebook has become. It's about pulling in some of the tools to the intranet from the internet, using internal blogs, or even taking services such as Twitter and put something together that's inspired by the sending of very short messages that you can subscribe to, and you can consume a lot of those short messages in a very short space of time, almost like peripheral vision that raises your awareness of what's going on in the organization and enables you to make better decisions.
Now, most employers would say that Twitter, which is this stream of constant updates about what your friends and associates are doing throughout the day, is a distraction that we can't have in our organisation. You say it can have organisational force. Instant updates on what sort of things? On bosses out, bosses in? What sort of things would you recommend to roll across the internal Twitter newscaster?
We have one client where we are experimenting with, in a global team, whenever somebody takes on work for a new client, they'll put together a very short message saying, we're doing this for this client. That enables everybody in this team to be aware of what's going on, especially in large organizations. It makes a lot of sense to put ideas online, to allow everybody to collaborate and build on those ideas. Plus, for one team to realize that maybe what they're working on has already been taken a lot further by a team elsewhere. This kind of democratizes the information flows, and it gives you the power to then engage in the discussions that are going on.
Lars Plowman at Headshift, the London expert consultancy on how to use these social networks. One adopter and explorer of the new Internet Web 2.0 is the telecoms networking company Cisco. Listen to this demo of Cisco Vision, or C-Vision. It's Cisco's attempt to emulate the video network YouTube in its own business arena.
Hello. In a healthcare environment, finding the right equipment or the right people with the right skills quickly and
Mark Forster, regional manager of Cisco Unified Communication, explains what's happening.
What you see here is one of my team members who's talking about a concept, a solution we've developed for hospitals in terms of making them more efficient, in terms of getting assets and individuals to operating theatres.
I'm about to show you a demonstration of how you can use Cisco Unified Communications to simply and easily find...
We use very effectively now, quite extensively, the concept of YouTube inside of Cisco, where, for example, an individual who may be an expert in a particular subject, which is a new product that may have come out, and it's hard for people to grasp what that is on an email, a short video being done by an individual to explain that is becoming very pervasive inside of Cisco. In fact, my own team have used that very effectively to push out concepts right across the globe.
And they're findable and sortable and labellable enough, are they? I mean,
the C-Vision or Cisco Vision, or our use of the YouTube concept inside of Cisco, everyone can put their information on it. And it is searchable. And you'll find if you do a search on a particular subject or issue or product, then you'll see a number of videos associated with that. If you look at what John Chambers does right now, he quite often sends
He's the chairman of Cisco.
He is indeed. He quite often now reverts to sending out video emails or video messages via CVision. If you want to get a message out to all of your staff, it should be very quick and be able to use your webcam at your desk to create that message to get it out to everybody as fast as possible.
Imitating YouTube internally gives Cisco a way of getting video messages across their whole organisation. Another idea is that one of emulating Facebook to provide much more than just a conventional staff directory online to the whole company.
Instead of searching the directory for a name, you'll start searching a directory for a solution. And you'll get hits on internet sites, you may even get hits on Wikipedia or wikis. You also get hits of individuals, and the individuals will be brought to you in terms of that search because in their profile they've actually got information as to what they've been doing in the past, what their past jobs were, so that you are able to be far more effective in terms of actually getting to the person inside an organisation that can help you address the issue at hand. And if you think about it, in an organisation the size of Cisco, that is a very powerful tool.
Particularly because you're acquiring so many other companies, so you don't necessarily know, unless you've kept up with it on an almost weekly basis, who the company owns and what the expertise may be, somewhere buried, somewhere quite distant from you, but very emailable.
Absolutely. Latest acquisition, which was WebEx, we acquired them in 8 days. Within 8 days, we had a new organisation as part of Cisco. If we were using that concept of Facebook, it'd be far easier to actually get people to start embracing the new technologies that organisation brings to us.
Yeah, and they wouldn't have to inquire what does WebEx do. They would just sort of start searching for a need they had in their bit of Cisco, and then suddenly WebEx people would start flashing up with possible solutions to the problem.
Exactly. I mean, obviously those WebEx people will be brought to your attention.
So this can be a very important new tool in the way a company runs.
Oh, I think it's going to be huge. I think it will really dramatically affect how organisations will operate in the future. We've got to embrace this, and I think that there will be really interesting conversations about how an organisation will use these technologies to make them more effective.
The wiki world is full of contributors, but some of them are wise and clever and experienced, and some of them are foolish and anarchic and maybe dangerous. And there's no immediate way of knowing what's duff information and what's good information. And you're saying embrace that in the company, this wiki world. So there are dangers there.
What we're finding here is and this is one of the debates that will go on for a while, is the consensus of opinion of millions versus the consensus of one. If you look at CVision, it's rated by individuals. Each video that's put up there is rated, and those videos get watched by the people who know the facts as much as the people who are actually interpreting them. So, a 5-star video is probably something that's very close to what needs to happen.
Mark Forster of Cisco. Once again, the Internet has delivered a new function that organisations have to take very seriously indeed, whatever their reservations are about handing over control of a company interface to unsupervised outsiders and insiders. The business world is getting to grips with Web 2.0. Stand by for Web 3.0 and beyond.
Peter Day. The producer of In Business was Rosamund Jones, and the editor was Stephen Chilcott. In next week's programme, Peter Day meets the most powerful woman in business in Europe. For more insights into the business world, you can download Peter Day's World of Business podcast, featuring content from his Radio 4 In Business programme and also Global Business from the BBC World Service, which broadcasts around 52 weeks a year on World Service Radio. If you've missed past editions of In Business, we keep a permanent archive of most of the programmes going back over the past 4 years, and you can access these via the link on our webpage on the right-hand side called Previous Programmes. To get to the In Business page, visit the Radio 4 website and follow the links. This has been a podcast from the BBC. For more information and for our terms and conditions, go to bbc.co.uk/Radio4.